We're live. Dennis, take it away.
Well, welcome to Legal AI Live for December 2025. This is a sort of our practical AI year-end episode. So we'll be looking back at 2025, and we'll probably sneak a look at into the future as well through a very practical lens. So keep the theory, the ethics, the trivia to a minimum, and we're going to focus on what lawyers and others in the legal profession actually used, what worked, and then what changed the way that we practice. And so we have a great panel today. So let's go around the horn and get them introduced. So Matthew.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew. I'm Matthew Kurbis. I'm a subscription attorney and host of the Law Subscribed podcast, and I am a daily user of AI and always love experimenting with new AI tools.
And then Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg Kochatsky, Vice President of Thought Leadership at the American Arbitration Association, where I help run our institute, our internal think tank, and I also am involved in all that we're building with AI.
And Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben Short. I'm an innovation strategist at Affinity Consulting Group. I work with our law firm clients to help them be more successful with Microsoft 365 and AI.
Great. And Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Conley. I'm an associate professor at the University of Montana Law School, and I teach an AI-related course, and I'm integrating AI into my courses and into my scholarship and research.
Right. Gio.
Happy holidays. George Bellis. I'm a practicing lawyer in a suburb of Chicago. Most of my work is in commercial litigation. I have been an advocate of technology since 1982 when I bought my first PC. It cost me $12,000 in 1982 money, so you can imagine what it's worth today. And I've been advocating the use in practical applications in the practice of law, particularly litigation, since that time. And I am just constantly amazed at what AI is doing to our practice.
Damien.
Damien, real litigator since 2002, but these days I work for Clio. I think maybe since the last time we talked, I used to be with VLEX, currently with Clio, where I'm a Clion officially, where I'm a builder. That is, I build product, and then I also talk about stuff that we build across the world, speaking to courts, judges, to law firms, and to bar associations, talking about how the law is being transformed.
And Kimberly.
Hi, everybody. Kimberly Bennett. I am CEO and co-founder of Fidoo. Used to be a practicing attorney. Well, I guess I still technically am a practicing attorney who ran a subscription and flat fee virtual practice for about 15 years, close to 15 years, and use AI clearly in our platform to help support our customers and legal professionals delivering services, and use AI every day as well, just because it's a part of what's transforming our industry.
And I guess I should introduce myself. So I'm Dennis Kennedy. I've been involved in a lot of different areas in the legal profession and legal technology for a long time. I'm starting to think of myself as an innovation detective. That's something I'm trying to define these days. And I'm doing something I call the Kennedy Idea Propulsion Laboratory, and I'm teaching a class in legal technology, literacy, and leadership at the University of Michigan Law School. So one of the things I'd like to do in my classes when I've taught is to start out to say, ask the students, what did you try in AI? Because I'm just really curious what people are actually doing. And that's sort of one of the things that motivated Matthew and I in putting this together. So I want to take a kind of expand that a little bit this time and say, what was the most interesting or useful thing that you tried in AI in 2025? Matthew.
All right, and I'll try to keep my answer short, and I hope everybody else does today because we got the biggest panel we've ever had. Cheers to a great first year of Legal AI Live. I guess the tool I use the most is Notebook LM Pro, and man, the way that they've just been shipping features inside of that tool on my to-do list for next year for that is, since you can't do it with the paid version like I would have hoped I would have been able to by the end of this year, I'm going to use a Gmail account to have like a forward-facing like prospective client like style interface, so that as like a lead gen opportunity for my law firm, because I was really hoping that could be an internal tool use for clients, but since it can't be yet, I'm going to be doing that. So I'm really looking forward. And I've been playing with that with other people who have done that. There are some content creators who are using that. So I'm probably no surprise for longtime listeners to know I'm going to say Notebook LM.
How about you, Greg?
I think that especially later in the year, and of course it's been a huge buzzword, but I've been doing a lot of vibe coding and using a platform called Base 44, although there are plenty of other ones out there. And in particular, I published this weekly newsletter on AI and ADR, and I've transformed my entire workflow into a web app, and it's just streamlined everything. And it's a really good collaboration platform too, where, I'm working with colleagues who are proposing articles to include, and we have everything in one dashboard, and it's just been kind of magical.
Wow. Ben?
Muted.
I'd say and I just said something really brilliant. I'd say the thing that's probably been the most impactful in 2025 with me and has been, I've been doing a lot of custom GPTs and agents in Copilot. And so creating those for very specific purposes and then fine tuning those, I'd say has been probably the most impactful thing so far. And that's continuing to evolve.
And Anna?
Yeah, in 2025, there were two big ways that I kind of explored AI. The first is I'm currently writing a comparative law casebook, and so I have to read cases from all over the world in order to find the ones I want. And translation is really tricky, and I found this website DeepL, and it's a great translation website. And it's cool because you can upload a file and you can take like the foreign court template and upload it, and it will translate it for you with the exact same formatting. So you can really do a really nice, easy translation. You don't have to cut and paste in. And then you can use their like web interface to cut and paste little paragraphs that you might want to drill into and click on the very specific words and really try to find exactly the right translation. And so that's been a game changer for me. Then the other thing is in learning science, we learn so much about how important self-testing is for students. And so in my doctrinal classes, I've been having students upload my slides to CoCounsel and basically create hypotheticals and multiple choice questions to try to do some self-testing for them to try to prepare for exams and midterms. And with, some success, still definitely looking to try to figure that out a little bit more. And then I know you haven't asked this yet, but I'm hoping to get collective wisdom on 2026, thinking about the collective group's ideas about law schools and kind of like trying to figure out that fine line between utilizing AI and integrating the technology and not having attenuation of critical thinking and writing skills. So,
Boy, starting out in the year, I didn't think we could do all the things we are now doing. And on an everyday basis, I'm using it initially to summarize complex documents. I'm using it to draft documents. That's a no-brainer. And the last week, I've had to deal with some different insurance policies, and it's really been a godsend. So I don't have to read all the fine print in these insurance policies, because those of us who have done that in the past know what a pain it is. And it's even put together demand letters for me using the terms of the policy. I've used it for e-discovery. I can't, my goal is, as soon as I pick something up to do, I try to do it in AI, using an AI agent. For most of our work in litigation, I'm relying on Lexis. I've found that Lexis is really robust in terms of what it gives me. And then I use ChatGPT to refine the language, although it has tricked us a couple of times. My office, after doing that, didn't check and didn't edit the citations. And it turns out it changed the citations. It was a real case, but it was a wrong case. And it happened twice. So we have to be.
So we have Geo Freeze.
Yeah, I think we lost you.
Okay, let's go to Damien.
There's a joke in there about GPS freezing with Geo, but I will not make that. I will not make that joke. So I would say that I work for the Clio, so of course Vincent is going to be the go-to thing that I'll say. But I'll say beyond Vincent, the ability of Gemini and ChatGPT to do deep research plus thinking this year, I think is the most transformative for me, because to be able to go from think 2024 where you just get an off-the-cuff answer versus deep thinking where it actually gives you 20 pages of really good thinking that has actual sources, and then take those 20 pages from Gemini, put it along with ChatGPT, and then let Claude synthesize those. I think that is a game changer to be able to say from where we were in 24 to where we are today. So I would say that's one aspect of what 25 changed. And I would say the others, I'll second Greg's comment about vibe coding. I think we're going to go from software as a service, where you have one person building software for many people, to building software for one. That is, Greg didn't need any developers to be able to build his thing. He just built his thing for him. And so there's a real question as to what our customers and what our clients will be doing for themselves. And what do they need us to do? What is the value that we're providing on top of what Greg just did himself? What is the value that a developer provides to Greg if he can do it himself? What is the value that we as a lawyer provide to our clients? So I think that vibe coding is going to be a shift, not just in code, that is computer code, but also legal code, because this is the way that, if I, as a citizen, have access to vibe coding with yesterday's case, yesterday's statute, and yesterday's regulation, how much can I be able to do?
Kimberly.
Well, after following that, I mean, that was great. I agree. I think we're not ready. We're not prepared for what the transformation is going to be. But yeah, I think, shameless for us that we released our AI builder for subscription flat fee services. And I found over the years, the biggest roadblock for people is getting out of their own way to launch it, to start thinking differently outside of the box in an industry that has been fraught with, too much risk aversion, which not in a bad way, but from a how do we deliver way, right? We're not being creative and curious about better ways to deliver. And I think this space and time we're in legal is forcing all of us to think differently. So I think for me personally, it was that release that unlocked a lot for our customers, and we'll continue to do that. And then I think broadly, yeah, I would agree with Damien. What we see that's kind of happening. I love all the vibe coding things that I see. I'm in other communities where I see outside of legal founders that are developing, and a lot of them are developing using vibe coding and other tools that they can kind of start from. And I think it opens up that door. Personally, outside of using that AI builder, because I had to test it all the time to make sure it was working, built on our framework. But I really do like Notebook LM. So I would say with Matthew, that's my probably second go-to. It's been like a big piece of it. And I've moved a little bit more away from ChatGPT more to Claude now, but I think they all are great. And I think everything is transforming. So one day you might like one day you might like the other. I think it's just being open and getting to learn how to use the tools is what's been my main focus this year, and not trying to jump everywhere, right?
I have been quoted as saying you don't have to be monogamous with your AI. The AI don't mind if you use other AI.
So George, I see that you're back. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to wrap up with, or
No,
we're just going to welcome you back.
I wish I came up with Damien's statement.
So my thing this whole year has been, and I mentioned on here, almost everything I'm doing is with personas. So persona protocols, persona AIs. A lot of that's happening inside Notebook LM in a lot of ways, and then also in other places. So I'm looking at how can I kind of wrestle with these AIs to get them to have sort of like a persistent basis and kind of get them closer to where I want them to go from the very first thing. So that's one thing. The other thing that I found recently is if you become really willing to say, let's just experiment, like maybe could AI actually do this, and then try it. So I did this thing recently. I have 50th high school reunion coming up, and I was talking to some friends, and long story short is I said, I wonder if I'd take a picture from the yearbooks and just have AI look at that in Gemini. And will it pull out all the names, and will it put them in alphabetical order? And then can I arrange it into a spreadsheet in Google Sheets by years? And then can it tell me some things about what's going on? And it did, not a perfect job, but actually a really amazing job. And I was like, I would have never thought this happened. And then when I asked it to say, what's interesting in this spreadsheet, it said, in this year, there was like a big influx of students. And I was like, that's interesting because that's the year, and I grew up in a small town, but that's the year the kids from the Catholic school came over to the public school. And so the AI like pulled that out and like suggested some demographic things that were right because there actually was a reason. But it was very interesting because it was just like a hypothesis. Like, I wonder if this will do anything that's even useful to like, wow, this is really, really helpful. So I asked AI to generate some questions for this. One that I really liked is this one, and I'll ask everybody this. So what tasks for you became boringly reliable for AI to handle? So Matthew, I'll put you on the spot first.
Geez, thanks. Okay, which task became boringly reliable? I'd say for the Comet browser, which is probably my most least tapped potential AI tool that I'm using. What became boringly reliable was using the Comet Assistant powered by Perplexity to just schedule everything in my calendar. And like, that's my calendaring assistant. And whenever I get a new email in, or there's some sort of task that I need to do or whatever, I tell it to find a 30-minute slot on my calendar, put it in this time, and invite the people that I want them to invite. I don't even, as long as I don't integrate my firm email, I integrate my consulting company email. So like, I have to put in email addresses for people to be calendared if they're not in that address book and they're more in my firm one. But I could just give like my wife's name, for example, because I have to add her to a lot of my stuff so she knows where I'm at. And it will just add Allie, to this, and it'll like add her, right? So it's gotten better and better. And they're shipping features, right? And they're like updating it and improving it. And it used to just like take control, and I would ask permission every time before it takes control. I could give it ultimate control, but I'm not going to do that. Right? I'm gonna have that friction where I say, okay, yes, you can now take control and go and do that. So I know it could be used for a lot more, but that's what I've reliably used it on consistently.
And Greg, what's AI doing for you that's boringly reliable now?
Well, this is kind of meta, but I think writing prompts for me, anything but the simplest prompt, prompt engineering was kind of a buzzword maybe in 2024, and it's kind of fallen by the wayside because the AI knows itself, and you just tell it what you're trying to do, and it's going to spit out a prompt that's probably going to do it better than anything you could write yourself. And so I that's become automatic for me, and saves a lot of time and just gets better results.
And what about you, Ben?
I've occasionally said working with AI is like working with animals or children. So boring, really reliable might be hard. But I guess for me, one of my custom GPTs is a news agent that gives me a daily summary of the news, and I've been tuning it over the year to exactly what kind of stories I want. What I'm interested, what I'm not. I'm not interested in celebrity gossip. I am interested in business and tech, et cetera. And so now I'd say, it's giving me a daily summary of the news that's been pretty reliable. And so I'd say that's probably my stalwart application right now.
And Anna.
Yeah. So a year ago, it was not a good starting place for legal research, neither Westlaw nor Lexis, but now it really is a good starting place for legal research. The Westlaw deep research, I think, is a good place to start, whereas a year ago, whatever Westlaw was a year ago was not. So for me, that's something that's become more reliable. And then also in my textbook, ChatGPT is a great starting place for me to try to find a seminal case in a country about a topic. So neither of those are finishing places by a long shot, but I now have more reliable starting places for both domestic and foreign legal research. And then what it was not yet reliable for me is drafting exams, drafting hypotheticals, or grading exams. Not yet good to go there. So still holding my breath on that one.
Damien.
Related to the grading, there was just a study 2 weeks ago from my friends from Michigan and Minnesota. You may have seen that there's a correlation between what the professor graded an exam and what the AI did. There's a 93% correlation between those two things. So I don't know what you're using or what they are using, but might be worth looking at too again. So
I
that's
see that. I wondered about that. Yeah.
yeah. It's pretty fascinating. Dan Schwartz from Minnesota is one of the co-authors of that. So anyway, so what I found, I've been a user of RSS feeds for decades, since around 2005, including Dennis Kennedy is one of my early my RSS feeds. And so I used Google Scholar, may it rest in peace. And then I moved over to Feedly, which is kind of withered on the vine without any new features and not really any AI implementation. So my kind of quasi AI thing that I use most often is InnoReader, INOREADER, which does a lot of things that Feedly cannot do, including highlighting terms. Every time there's a term inside of the RSS feed, it highlights it. So every time there's AI and law, it highlights that programmatically. So that's thing number one. But most importantly, I can put my summarize prompt into it. So for example, if there's a 20-page article that maybe I want to read, maybe I don't, I click summarize and it puts in multi-level bullets, essentially an outline of what it is that I can skim. And if I like it, if that seems interesting, the outline, then I can hit another button and then it actually gives quotations. That is the outline point and then a quoted part from the article underneath that. And if I like that enough, then I'll actually read the article. So this is a way that I can be able to screen to be able to see, is this article that is maybe a bunch of pages worth my time? And I think this is a microcosm of our macro decision that we societally have to say, is that article that I summarized in bullet points probably started as bullet points. That is, the author of that article probably created an outline with bullet points and sub-bullets. So that article started as bullet points, turned into an article that I turned into bullet points. And so what's the point of the article when there could have been 1,000 versions of that article or 1,000,000 versions of that article? The bullet points maybe are the most important thing. And maybe putting them in narrative prose, that is in paragraphs, is just a waste of time. So that's what I realized this year.
Believe it or not, I'm back to using Outlook as my RSS reader.
Oh, wow. Kimberly, how about you?
I feel like these aren't like a fair order because again, following that, I'm gonna be, first of all, I kind of want this prompt. Also interesting, what if we go back to bullet points? I'm just my mind is still listening to the previous answer. For me, best use case in my daily life, easy that I can rely on is content production now. I've gotten it dialed in pretty well, particularly because it's using I think I forgot how many when I posted, it's 100 and something, 200 something. I don't remember content, like events that I did this year singly on my own. And so that produces a ton of content. But towards a certain part of that, I started really trying to level up my usage of AI so I can produce it at scale, but feel like it is dialed into my talking points. It's always a good first draft. It is never, of course, we all know, a good final, but it's the first draft is a really solid one that I can then use and go live if I want to, talk through things, create presentations, just iterate, reflect on what is the nuance perspective I'm bringing to this particular conversation, and then go back and refine, draft something new, add it, and continue to refine. So I found it to be a good first drafter, but it also gives me the space to create new content that then puts into my global content production pipeline, I guess. So that's mine. Not just
And Gio, what's boringly reliable for you in AI these days?
Judges and the skepticism about the use of AI. And I mean, it's like everybody's looking to write an opinion to make the news about slamming somebody who uses it. It's getting tedious. Also, not just judges, but lawyers, especially older lawyers, who just sit back and say, I can't use it, or why do you use it? It hallucinates. Or their favorite word. I think the word of the year for the Oxford Dictionary ought to be hallucinate. It's just everybody wants to say that AI is hallucinating, it's not reliable. But gosh, the more I use it, the more comfortable I get with it. This morning, I had to send a letter to some clients that are heirs of an estate here in the United States. They're in Greece. I had a letter drafted and I put it into chat and I asked it to translate in Greek and I sent the letter to them in Greek. And we're doing that in several different languages. The only thing we're limited, this is not boringly reliable. We're only limited by our own imagination and how we could use all these different tools. I think the most difficult thing for somebody like me is who's actively practicing is keeping up with the different agents that are available and trying to figure out which agents apply for different, are best to use for different things. And Damien, afterwards, I want to have a conversation with you about something that I find disappointing, but I'm excited. I'm bored. I'm constantly amazed. I guess that's the thing.
Yeah, so it's interesting because a number of you mentioned things that I find it really reliable. I just turn to. Greg talked about prompts. I really don't. I let AI draft the prompts. It's almost like I say, here's what I want to have happen. Write the prompt, and then I'll tweak it. So where I think it's really boring reliable is the blank page problem. I have a blank page in front of me. I want to try to figure out what goes on there, and I'll say, let's let the AI take first crack at that. And that's why I've been doing more of the persona stuff. It could be like act as a stand-in for me, take this perspective and do these things, and then come and do that. And then I also think it's reliable on the back end as well in a couple ways, where you can do something, say, assume you're an expert copywriter, copy editor, and take a look at this. Act as a stand-in for the audience for my talk, and tell me what they would most like to learn in this. And it just really helps you organize things. I find it, really reliable because I'm not counting on it to be like 100% accurate or have the right thing, but otherwise I'm just guessing, right? If I'm speaking to a group and I'm going, I don't know what they want, but maybe the AI can act as a stand-in for that audience and help me. And I just found that super, super reliable.
Dennis, to build on what you just said, I've actually been using personas a little bit when I write an article or when I create the outline for a new course. I've been using the persona to say, and act as an attorney who wants to learn more about this subject.
Yep.
Take a look at this. Let me know what I may have overlooked. Give me some feedback on this article, this chapter, this outline. And it has been very helpful to suggest. Sometimes what it suggests I'm not that interested in, but it has been pretty helpful to spot some things.
Yeah, it's like sometimes I've mentioned on here before in a number of places, I love this little prompt called, what might I have missed? And so I'll finish something up and just say, what might I have missed? And, a lot of times there'll be something that comes up that allows me to iterate, like another round or two and actually get to something really good.
That what I would have missed in technical terms, in data science, they call that precision and recall. And what I would have missed is essentially doing the recall. And when you think about, searching in the olden days, Westlaw, Lexis, or VLX Clio, of course, with a keyword search, you'd always say, okay, these results look fine, precision, but what did I miss? Recall. And so, Dennis, what you said is really profound because the AI allows us to be able to increase our recall to figure out what we missed.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because there are some data science things that slip in. So what I find especially the newest versions of the AI is I feel like I really have to wrestle with them a lot more than say like 6 months ago, because I think there's a lot of guardrails and other things being built into them. But it will, you say, like, I think this is going to be an issue in legal, especially. You say, I have this draft, and you're saying, oh, I'd like to make a couple changes to it. And you say, like, go ahead and finalize this for me. And you realize it took a bunch of stuff out, and you said, like, all I want to do is like add a sentence or two. And so what I learned was that this notion of lossiness that comes from, compression of music and other things like that. And so now I'm using prompts that say, like, do this in a lossless way. And I fight with it a lot because it doesn't always go along with that. So
that's one of the reasons why, Dennis, I don't try to actually do any substantive writing inside an AI tool, and I'll attach a document and I'll base it off that document. And then I'll have that document open either in a Google Doc or in Word side by side with it. And yes, that's annoying, but I don't have that problem because I'm not actually editing a doc inside an AI tool. And even when Paxton wants to answer my prompting by creating a Word doc, I'm like, no. I just want it in the text so I could do the copying and pasting into it because it will even, Paxton that's sort of designed for that. It will start to make some mistakes or duplicate like things that are already in clauses in other parts of the agreement if I let it do that. But by not letting it do that, I'm going to be able to avoid that problem.
What you just described as human in the loop, that is Dennis is in the loop and Matthew is on the loop. That is you're onto this. And then there's also the next on automation is human in control, where you just let the AIs do it all by themselves. So essentially you just described the 3 types of agency.
That ends part 1 of this month's Legal AI Live. Make sure to subscribe to the Legal AI Live podcast at legalailive.com to catch part 2. You could also subscribe to our new YouTube channel or on any podcast app, just search Legal AI Live, and follow the Legal AI Live page on LinkedIn. See you next episode.